No. Most people who do have suicidal thoughts don't bring it up, and it's very brave of them if they do.
Last year, Addison Condi was the Bonneville Junior High School yearbook editor, but now, after a year of difficult conversations, she looks through the pages, realizing what she wanted to publish never made it into students' hands.
And I saw that the editor page had been ripped out, so I was a little confused. I was like, that's weird. So I thought it was a mistake.
It was not a mistake. The school intentionally ripped out this page from each yearbook, showing a photo of her teacher wearing a shirt to honor the death of a classmate who died by suicide in March.
Like physically ripped out, like you can see in the book that there's remnants of a page. I just want an explanation as to why.
I think it's just dishonorable. If you even knew Marina at all, she wasn't silent. She would stand on her principles no matter what, and she had a good moral compass, a solid moral compass.
Marina Jensen was 14 years old. We interviewed her dad the day after Father's Day.
She was so very, very valuable and unique and special. You don't think somebody that strong and that mentally capable and that loving and kind has, you know, these deep, deep things inside of them. This is not how she would have wanted this to happen.
Marina's photo was never taken on school picture day, which means nothing even mentioning her enrollment was published anywhere in the yearbook. That's why Addison says she wanted to dedicate a full page in the yearbook to her classmate to start an important conversation about mental health, drawing more attention to the way Marina lived instead of the way she died. Granite School District denied that request and only found out about the teacher's t-shirt after the yearbook's publication.
They brought more of a, oh, what's this? Why is it gone? Kind of attention. Nothing that we wanted to do even said anything about the way she died. It simply said her name or showed a picture of her. It was a positive way to memorialize her.
I think that's the very most important thing, checking in more, having more conversations, just getting to the root of problems.
Experts tell Fox 13 they agree. Dr. Thea Gallagher, a clinical psychologist and professor at UPenn, gives Granite School District credit for having mental health counselors on campus after Marina's death, but she worries about the message of ripping out a page from the yearbook.
The worst thing that can happen is that kids continue to isolate and don't tell people how they're feeling, and then they're not going to get the help that they need.
Did the school have any conversations with you about the yearbook?
No.
A spokesperson for Granite School District declined to go on camera, but said administrators made the decision in an effort to avoid putting students at risk of being re-traumatized. He says they asked the Utah Department of Health for guidance.
That's not true.
So we were not involved. The Department of Health has not been involved in any school level decisions. Those decisions are made by the school at the school level.
The Department of Health also declined to comment on the specifics of this case, but each year they do send out this 76-page handbook, laying out best practices for how to respond after a suicide. It states romanticizing the death of a student is dangerous, but there are ways to honor them in a healthy, appropriate way, including in the yearbook. Quote, the focus should be on mental health and/or suicide prevention. Underneath the student's picture, it might say, in your memory, we will work to erase the prejudice surrounding mental health problems and suicide.
It's easier to kind of try to hide that, and the guidelines certainly don't encourage you to hide those deaths, but you have to treat them very sensitively.
Does it seem like perhaps this is just a case of the school district being overly cautious? Do you think it does more harm than good?
Absolutely. This is a person, this is a human, and we still need the opportunity to celebrate and grieve their life.
The guidance also states it is important for all deaths to be treated equally, but Granite School District confirms a few years ago a teacher who died from cancer did receive an in memoriam page in the yearbook. The district now says it no longer does that.
All students who've passed away need to be recognized, not just some of them, not just the kids who were popular or that, died by this cause versus that cause.
Yeah, this creates that dialogue. This creates a bridge and a pathway for maybe one other kid to say, Dad, hey, I'm feeling kind of weird.
Marina has 2 younger brothers, and Dad says having conversations with them after his daughter's death has been crucial.
Randomly, on one of the silent parts of the ride home, my oldest son said, "Dad, this helped me. Dad, this helped me."
He's glad the school was willing to have those same important conversations with students in the days after Marina's death, but he wants to know why it never continued. The only physical memory of his daughter now being a ripped out page.
This is not the way to do it. Silence is not the way to do it. I don't want anybody's family to feel remotely close to how we feel. This has been a crippling loss. She wanted to be a lawyer to help people. When you meet me, you meet her. You said, "I don't take this off." She could talk forever, but she could also listen. She was captivating. She would make you want to talk to her.
Marina Jensen's classmates don't just feel something's missing, they're looking at it. The only memory of her in the Bonneville Junior High School yearbook is a ripped out page.
Physically ripped out, like you can see in the book that there's remnants of a page.
That's what they're going to remember out of the yearbook. It's not going to be the writings on the pages, it's going to be the ripped out page, and their mind's automatically going to go to suicide.
The page would have shown a photo of Marina's teacher wearing a t-shirt with a tribute, but the school removed it, they say, to avoid re-traumatizing students.
In an effort to prevent what they were fearing, they created more of a buzz.
Taryn Hyatt, Utah's director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, says romanticizing the death of a student is dangerous, but honoring their life in a responsible way is healthy. She thinks Granite School District should have done better, missing an opportunity to have an important conversation about mental health.
I do think that had they had a policy in place, they wouldn't have had to make that last-minute decision, and the photo that I've seen was in line. It was nothing that would have violated safe practice.
According to Utah State Code, districts are required to implement a program that addresses suicide prevention and suicide response. Those programs often include mental health counselors on campus and how to notify families.
How we respond to a suicide death matters because it can either increase risk or mitigate risks.
Granite School District did follow some best practice guidelines by placing mental health counselors on campus after Marina's death, sending out an email to parents, and giving students an opportunity to write letters to the family.
Initially, the school came to my home. They were very kind.
But the Granite District does not have a formal suicide response policy.
If we can get a detailed policy in place, it keeps us from having to have situations like this.
We checked with 6 of the biggest districts in northern Utah. Only Salt Lake City, Canyons, Jordan, and Davis school districts were able to send us copies of their general suicide response programs. Some are more specific than others, but none of them address whether to memorialize a student in the yearbook.
This is something we do need to do. We need to be good at this.
Bryce Dunford is the vice president of Jordan School District's Board of Education. He thinks back to 2018 when 7 students at Harriman High School took their own lives, and how members of the community came together to pay tribute.
I made a poster that said, "You have a purpose in life," because I think just a lot of the things that have been happening is people thinking that no one cares and that they have nothing to live for, but I think that everyone has a purpose.
I will never forget those who needed help and we didn't have it. We owe it to them to prevent anyone else from crying out and not having the help they need.
He says he is grateful for the chance to rethink everything his district is doing to make sure students are protected.
Sometimes even well-intended responses can cause more harm than good. It's far too important that we respond right, that we check our egos and we set all of that aside and say, look, let's admit that maybe we haven't done everything right in the past.
Alpine School District confirms it is in the process of developing a new policy that will be ready by next school year. Granite School District says it relies on national guidance as more of a procedure, rather than adopting a formal policy.
It's great that they have the toolkit and they're referencing it, but it would be nice to take it that next step further and again make sure everybody in your school is aware of what our policy is if a student dies from suicide.
There was a time when reading, writing, and arithmetic were our jam. And that's great. Now we need to get good at recognizing when students are struggling with mental health and providing the resources that they need. That's part of an education.